Hey there! Oh my gosh, 2 more pages? That's right, almost done with Strictly Strings, and here's page 36. This is a big page, however, and I don't know, this bow stroke is pretty, better word for tricky is that it is a subtle, nuanced bow stroke. So doing the word spiccato with your bow means that it's going to be sort of brushing off the string. But some of the things that are really helpful to be able to do before you do spiccato is having flexibility in your knuckles and making sure that your thumb and pinky aren't locked. If those things are still in progress, then this bow stroke can be really challenging to do. Now, if your bow hand has a lot of movement in it and it's able to be flexible, great. Then we have to look at our elbow and our shoulder to make sure that we have comfort in using our elbow and shoulder to move the bow back and forth without tension and strength. So that's a big one. Maybe you're ready for it, maybe you're not quite ready for it, but at some point you will be ready for it. So today we'll talk a little bit about how to create that stroke and how to start looking at music that might have the bow stroke spiccato. And it's got a box on there on the top, it's called the classical style, and that's kind of a rough set of dates, 1750 to 1825. You got yourself some really famous composers from that time period, one of them being Mozart, but there is a lot of them, and if you become a music major, you're going to study many of them. But what's really wonderful about 2021 is that you can get a much wider array and concept of who was there during that time composing music. Because although Mozart's fantastic, he was not the only one. Now, a new tempo we have is vivace. Now that means lively. Just think your younger brother when it's past their bedtime. Not to the cranky stage, but just the energetic part. And then we have the word Vivace. Now, Vivace just means to divide it. Sometimes we are asked to play 2 notes at once, and it's hard to do that. And sometimes you just physically can't do it, so you divide the notes. One person plays the top note, one person plays the bottom note. It's not a hugely new concept that you have to worry about right now. However, sometimes composers like to have their music sound thicker. So what they do is they write Vivace parts, where some of the violins play the top note, some play the bottom note, but then you do that with every section and it makes a much thicker sound because there's just more notes being played. So it's kind of an interesting idea. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Page 36, they're going to give you a lot of options to play spiccato. So the notes aren't hard. You might have noticed that in page 36, number 1, you got open D, you got open A, you have open G. This is a really smart strategy. Really smart strategy. When you're learning a new bow stroke, you want to make sure that you're thinking about the simplest way that you can attain this new skill. Well, the simplest way is to just play on an open string. Now, even simpler is to not be reading the music and just thinking exactly about what you're trying to do. So there's a few ways to teach this. One way, which may work really well for you, is just allowing the bow to move back and forth and just keep going faster and faster and faster until you feel the hair just coming off the string. Now, what you have to be able to do is make sure that you're not pressing down with that first finger too much to allow for sort of a relaxed state and relationship with the string. If you're too fixed, it'll get stuck to the string. And sometimes if you become too aggressive with your angle, it'll start ricocheting off the string, which isn't quite the right concept either. Another way to do it is to just hold your bow above the string a couple of inches and then drop it and then catch the rebound. When you catch the rebound, blink, blink, blink. When you catch the rebound, your hand is getting used to it. It might be like dribbling a basketball. The idea of allowing the object to move and come back to you. It doesn't take as much force as just pressing down on something and holding it there. Much simpler to allow the object to do the work. Well, the spiccato bow stroke is kind of that. Once you can let the bow do the work for you, it's a lot easier because then you're not making it happen with your arm. All you're doing is providing motion and energy. So as you're practicing, you might want to try dropping your bow from maybe 1 or 2 inches off the string and let it hit the string, blink, and then catch it. Blink, catch, blink, catch, blink, catch. Once you start feeling your pinky and thumb kind of being in coordination for that, you can try 2 drops. Blink, 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 blink. And every time you allow it to bounce twice, then you catch it in between. Blink, blink, catch, blink, blink, catch, blink, blink, catch, blink, blink, catch. After 2, what do you think happens? 3. Yeah, good. Blink, 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 catch, blink, 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 catch, blink, 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 catch, blink, blink, blink. And just moving your arm back and forth and allowing the bow to bounce and then catching it at your finger. Well, that's a great way to start feeling what a moving bow bouncing off the string feels like. Well, there's a little strategy to it. It doesn't have it printed in anywhere here in the book. It does not suggest to play it in the easiest place necessarily. If you try doing this at the frog, like it suggests at the top of the page, you might get really stuck in your arm. If you go to the tip, it's going to bounce all crazy. So you might want to consider doing the balance point or even the middle of the bow just to first get the feeling. Now, at some point, you'll be able to do this bow stroke everywhere on your bow. 100%. It happens. But for now, you might want to consider the balance point because the balance point is balanced. So it's the easiest place to allow the natural weight of the bow to come back into your hand. When you go to the frog, a little bit crowded, you might have to work too hard. You do have more control, but you're going to be using control, which you don't really need. And if you go to the tip, it's going to bounce all crazy and wild, and that might be too much energy for you to manage, and the bow might just ricochet away from the instrument and not hit in the same part of the string. So what I recommend is you first just try experimenting with this on an open string and then seeing all the different combinations you can do with how many bounces, and then you can start practicing these exercises. So take a moment, experiment, and then see what it's like when you start to play what's on the page. So let's pretend that you just practiced. Here's page 36, number 1. This is an off the string bow stroke. So what you're trying to do is just have your bow make a little smile, kind of a smirk. Not a giant smile, because that's too bouncy, just a little sort of positive expression. But really it's just the idea of that it's not a straight line, and it's not an angular V, it's just a nice little arch. And here we go, page 36, number 1. 1 and 2, and ready, and go. And 1 and 2, and repeat, ready, and 2, and B section, ready, and 1 and 2, and 1, and repeat, 1 and 2. Section C, ready, go. 1 and 2, and long, long. 1 and 2, and long. D section, long, long. Long, long. So it's a big jump to go from only a single open string to then trying to read music to then trying to change strings. So you definitely want to practice just doing spiccato on the A string, just doing spiccato on the D string, just doing spiccato on every open string, and then start going between the two. You'll get there, but it might take a little while, like more than 3 minutes, more than 3 hours. Might take 3 weeks, might take 3 months. It can take a while to produce these things, especially if you have lots of tension in your pinky and your thumb. So if you've been doing a really good job of paying attention to keeping all of that movable, well, then you're closer to having the spiccato bow stroke. Looking at number 2, it's the same idea. What they're trying to teach you here is to sometimes be off the string and sometimes be on the string. So you're off, and then you relax your hand and you go on. Off, on. That's a great skill to have. So that means when you're off the string, you engage a different energy and motion in your arm. When you're on the string, you allow the bow to settle on the string. Then in section B, it's like, hey, you may not remember this, but we taught you about single eighth notes and eighth rests. So in the B section, we have 1 and 2, rest, rest, and done. Now on top of that, you have yourself this all these lifts to manage and a C natural, which is really strange because you're playing a whole bunch of things in the key of D. Sometimes that happens with composers. They write things that are interesting for our ears. So let's try page 36, number 2. 1 and 2 and ready and go. And 1 and 2 and on the string and off 2, 3. Repeat and F natural and section B. Lift, 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 repeat. B, C, and done. The spiccato bow stroke and going on and off the string, no joke. It's a big deal. So again, it's great that it's being introduced, but there are a lot of elements to that particular bow stroke that might take you a while. And that's cool, that's learning. So now let's go to Mary Had a Little Lamb. Now that's pretty exciting because you get to add some elements that you already know. You learned E flat just a page before. So we have G, F natural, E flat. Now your hand might still like G, F sharp, and then E. That's gonna sound weird. That doesn't sound right. So make sure we have G, F natural, E flat. Ah. Now you also get to add mezzo forte, just a nice medium sound, and you get to add legato. Nice smooth bow strokes. You also get the joy of doing B flats, which are not too familiar, but you have also learned. 2-note slurs, a lift, and a repeat. So here's Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'll say the note names, and you go ahead and do what you need to do. Say the note names with me, or clap the rhythms, or air bow, or whatever it is that suits your needs. You ready? 1, 2, ready, go. G, F, E flat, F, G, 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 F, 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 G, B flat, B flat, F, E flat, F, G, G, G. Repeat and ready and go. And G, F, E flat, F, G, 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 F, 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 G, B flat, B flat, E flat, F, G, 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 F, F, E, flat. Done. Next up, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Famous melody. Here's that fella Mozart we heard about. But let's just talk about the stuff you need to remember. We have spiccato, off the string, a brush stroke. If you're not ready for it, just play it on the string until you've learned the tune, and then you can add that element. Much, 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 much better to learn the bow stroke on an open string. Do it well there first. Then you can add more strings. Then you can add music like this. So we have off the string, on the string, mezzo forte, up to forte. A couple of lifts, a repeat sign of only 2 measures, and a DC al fine da capo. If you remember, that means to go back to the beginning, da capo, and then that second time through, play all the way up to the word fine, because that means the end. Here we go. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. 1 and 2 and ready and go. And D, 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 A, 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 B, 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 A, and G, 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 F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, E, 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 D, and here we are. A, 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 G, 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 F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, E, lift, repeat, and A, 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 G, 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 F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, E, repeat, beginning, and D, 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 A, 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 B, 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 A, lift your bow, and G, 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 F sharp, 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 and E, 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 and done, and off. And that's it. The hardest thing, of course, there is this spiccato bow stroke. But if you play that on the string, you'll know yourself a nice tune, and you can focus on all the other elements to making a great piece of music, and then add the spiccato when you've practiced it on the open strings. Moving on, Czech folk song. More opportunities to do spiccato. You also have the opportunity to get your eyes used to reading a single 8th note and then a single 8th note rest. So we would have 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Making sure we have that silence in between the 8th note and then the following measure. So for this one, until you're really ready for spiccato, what you can learn from this is clapping the rhythms and saying the note names. So let's do it one time through. Let's forget the repeat sign, and we'll just say the notes and we'll just do the rhythms. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and ready and go. And F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, F sharp, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, second line, and 1 and 2 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 and off. When we do our subdivisions, really important that we're very, very precise. Remember, if you tell somebody, hey, I'll be there in 5 minutes, and you don't show up for 4 hours, they're going to be worried or annoyed or something. but they'll definitely wonder why you weren't there in 5 minutes. When composers write these rhythms, they have to be very specific. Looking at Finale from the New World Symphony, this one can go ahead and deal with a lot of stuff that we've dealt with in the entire book. We start with our newer notes, the E string notes for the violins. We add our newer key signature, 1 sharp in the key signature, meaning every F is F sharp, meaning we have to remember it's low second finger on the A and E strings. We also get to do 4th finger E's if you happen to be a violinist. You get to do slurred, staccato, and hooked bows, plus dotted rhythms and 8th notes. You also get to experience the 4th finger B if you're a violinist, the giant octave leap. You get to play fortissimo, and you have a lift and a repeat. This is Finale from the New World. If you're not ready to play the entire thing, just play individual measures. Make sure you practice what it feels like to play on that E string, what it feels like to do a dotted quarter note and 8th note rhythm. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. E, 2, 3, 4. F sharp and E, E. E, D, B, D, E. 2, 3. E, E. F sharp, G, F sharp, E, E. G, G, B, B, E, repeat and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, off. Some of that's awkward to coordinate, those big leaps from high notes to low notes, and some of those slurs, some of those fast string crossings. Practice them slowly individually, go back and then listen to the recording again and try to play along. Say note names, clap rhythms, air bow, pizzicato. You could practice 5 or 6 times with the recording and then practice just the hard spots on your own and then put it all together with your bow. It's more efficient, it's more effective. And the last one on this particular page is a piece called Not Quite Nachtmusik, which is a play on Eine kleine Nachtmusik, which is the famous Little Night Music written by Mozart, which is why you can say this is inspired by Mozart. His famous rhythm is... But what they did here, before taking that for Little Einsteins, is just playing straight 8th notes. Because they wanted to give you a chance to practice spiccato, the bouncing bow stroke. I recommend not doing spiccato at the very beginning unless you just want to practice those individual notes. With spiccato. And then go to the next note until it feels comfortable. And then go to the next note until it feels comfortable. That would be fine. But to try and play... just going to be frustrated, and you probably won't practice the spiccato bow stroke, and you probably get some tension in your thumb and your pinky. So you may as well just practice the skill separately or in a modified way and then start chipping away. First step, make sure you can say these note names without thinking. Make sure you can play these rhythms, although that one's probably okay since they're all 8th notes. Make sure you understand the key signature. Make sure you understand that word Vivace at the very end. You don't have to play both notes, although technically you can. You don't have to because they've given you the direction, D-I-V. Vivace. So go ahead and divide it. And that's all it is. Let's go ahead and try it. You practice what you need to practice, but for right now, I'm going to go ahead and play through the entire thing. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready and go. And 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 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 2 and 2. Sorry, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Ha! No excuses. But I made my error when my dog got up and came running on over. She likes Mozart. That's it for page 36. I would definitely practice your spiccato bow stroke on open strings and separate from this exercise. I would definitely practice individual measures or even just 2 or 4 note groupings of this particular piece because it's challenging to jump all around the instrument. Make sure you take your time, be nice to yourself in the process, and give yourself tasks that you can accomplish as close to correctly as possible. You might not be able to play the whole first measure, but you can play G. So just work on G and then go to the next note. Add a couple of the notes together and keep building from there. Nice job, everybody. Remember, this whole page takes a lot longer than 21 minutes to actually master. What you just went through gave you a chance to work through everything and see how it went, and now you get through the fun part. You just get to get better little by little until this is finally something you can do without thinking, and you are able to play these notes and these rhythms and become one step closer to being able to play all this stuff with other folks around you. Nice job. And remember, if you do practice every day, by the end of the year, you'll be taller.